Taping, ready to go? Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the City of Homestead Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, June 13th, 2006. It's approximately 5:35 p.m. Present is Vice Mayor Lossner, Councilman Porter, Councilwoman Garner, and Councilwoman Bell. I'll look to the manager in a moment. Do I have a motion for the approval of the May 23rd, 2006 for the whole minutes? Do we have a motion? Do I have a second? Second. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Tab 2, item 2B, Special Events Grant Fund. Kurt, before we proceed, do we have any deletions or deferrals?
We do have deletions. Let me take from the original. I think the new one accounts for that. We have the, let's see, where is it?
No, we're on the
Housing Coalition.
We're on this color now. You may not.
Yeah, but if it's deleted, it won't be on there. So I don't think there's any on the
on the orange.
On the orange one. No, I think that took into consideration all the deletions. Is that correct?
Which one was the deferral? So that was on there.
The deferred is which one?
The Audubon is still strict on this.
Audubon. Yes. Okay, man, it's okay. That's it then. All that rhetoric.
All right, then, item 2B, Special Events Grants Fund.
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor and Council. The Special Events Grants Fund Committee met, and what you have before you is a result of their meeting and reviewing requests for money from our special events. The total amount is $16,500 out of the total account's $20,000 for the year. And there's a list there that the committee approved and the amounts that were approved, and we had just one that rejected the award. Wasn't enough, so I think they want to come back and take a second bite at the apple later.
Can I ask a question,
Mr. Porter?
Originally, when we talked about this special events fund, we wanted to make sure and take care of the signature types of events that we considered repetitive events, rodeo, parade, right. Martin Luther King parade. They're all taken care of. That's so this correct. Available $20,000 is above and beyond what's already been used. Okay, thank you.
All right. So then, Kurt, other than the Iglesia, the others have been accepted and they'll come back at some point, or not?
That's correct.
All right, then do we have a motion for approval?
I'll move it.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Bell, second by Councilman Porter. Any further discussion from council? Any public comment? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And then item 2C, resolution approving the ground lease agreement with Nextel.
Yes, Vice Mayor and Council, this is a proposed lease for the co-location of a wireless antenna on a telecom tower we have out by our Lucy substation. The lease is 5 years, as a 5-year agreement with 4 5-year renewals. During the first, we are getting $2,250 a month, $27,000 annually. Once the extended periods come in, there's a 4% per annum increase each year. Also, Nextel is going to pay for $4,000 for a capital contribution to be determined, and they had to pay an application fee of $3,800 under our cost recovery ordinance. I do have Mr. Scott Robbins here for any questions that you might have from the Attorney's Office that did Scott did the lease agreement.
Any questions for Council? Mr. Porter.
Mr. Hyde, we had been talking about the potential of trying to move or look at a new police station, and we looked at the available lands that might be able to suffice as possible location. This was one of those locations that was available. And before we go into a lot of long-term leases that we may or may not be able to get out of, has there been any thought process behind that?
Yes. We've also included in their paragraphs that if we build government buildings, that there's provisions for them to be located on property somewhere else, city property somewhere else.
So if if there's availability for them to use the existing structure, assuming there's a building built there and they wanted to attach to somewhere on the top of the building, hypothetically, they could do that, or you would take them and move them to another location, another city-owned location.
That's correct.
And they're amenable to that?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further? Ms. Garner? Kurt, now this is for a co-location in addition to the antenna that's already in place.
That's correct.
Now, does this lease have do the terminations of that lease and this lease meet, or do they overlap?
Well, the termination, the original lease has similar, even though they're ahead of this lease. However, if the major leaseholder there, the one, who was it? T-Mobile, that's right, I can remember. T-Mobile is required to move. We have paragraphs in there that limit their...
So it's a second antenna, not an antenna on an antenna.
Right, second antenna.
Okay. That answers the question then.
Second antenna, not an antenna on an antenna.
This one is going to be, they're going to lease ground from us, and they're going to have a lease from T-Mobile to put their antennas on the mobile in the T-Mobile tower.
Okay.
And like Kurt said, if T-Mobile cancels, they automatically cancel this one.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Kurt, refresh my memory. We've got a nursery lease there in place as well, and answering Mr. Porter's concerns. Did we have those protections in that lease, or what's the end date there, or any option renewals there?
There was an end date there, and there was also, we're on a...
Was 3 months.
3 month, kind of month to month, we'll have there until we decide.
When we're ready, they're pretty much...
Right, we're going to be able to vacate.
If and when we're ready.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion, questions or discussion from council? Anything from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 2D, ordinance adopting and implementing new commercial development standards.
Mr. Vice Mayor and Council, we have a presentation prepared for you. It's going to require you to sit in the front again. It's a
You have to move.
PowerPoint.
Good evening, council members. My name is Deborah Tackett. I'm an urban designer with Prepay and Partners, and tonight I'm going to present the draft of the commercial development standards that were drafted in conjunction with the city's traffic consultant, Lisa Colmenares, and the city attorneys. As far as the presentation tonight, we're going to go over the purpose and intent of this ordinance, the objectives, the administrative process, which this will be implemented, established districts, and the design standards. The purpose and intent of this proposed ordinance is to supplement existing development criteria with specific criteria that applies to the design of commercial development. The objectives are protection of adjacent residential land uses, enhancement of the commercial status, reduction of visual distraction through uniform design criteria, enhancement of appearance through increased landscaping, implementation of the City of Homestead history through street furniture, an increase in pedestrian-oriented facilities, implementation of sign regulations, establish development incentives to achieve these objectives, and achieve aesthetic compatibility throughout the commercial districts. The administrative process that we will be following is going to be amending the section 30-47 of the city's code, number 2, which states that the urban designer, when plans are submitted for a site plan, the urban designer must include a statement in his required statement saying whether or not the proposed site plan complies with these new commercial standards. These are the established districts. I'm going to read through them, and on the next slide you'll see a map of them all. The Campbell Drive corridor, the Southwest 14th Avenue, Southwest 8th Street area, Flagler Avenue corridor, South Dixie Highway, Pioneer Commerce Park, Campbell Drive East corridor, Northwest 15th Avenue, Chrome Avenue North limit, Park of Commerce corridor, and then there's also the Southwest neighborhood, which already has implemented design standards within the Southwest Neighborhood Master Plan that was drafted. So that would just be referring to those standards. And the same principle would be applied to the Chrome Avenue Historic District, which would reference regulations already in place within the historic design guidelines. Now this is the map of our proposed districts. You can see south of District 1, those are the historic districts which we have left out. We had input from the Main Street program and from the Historic Preservation Board, and it was a little too late after Planning and Zoning had approved this for us to come in with their recommendations. So those have been left blank. There's two different districts. One is an outline, it's an irregular shape of the proposed National Register Historic District, which will of course have much more stringent design standards than the rest of the area. But that is the map, and the key labels all of the specific overlay districts. And then I'm going to be going through the different criteria for each district. A lot of these districts are going to have general guidelines, which will be consistent throughout the commercial districts. But each one of them will also have specific criteria tailored to the conditions that are present within those areas. The general standards, like I had said before, this will apply to all of the commercial districts. So for any site plan review, these items are what we're going to be looking at. Now this is just a bullet point outline of these standards. The specifics are in the ordinance draft that we had provided in your packet. One issue that we dealt with was parking lot and streetscape design. We've included screening with landscape issues for mechanical equipment and for service areas. We have increased the amount of screening that would be necessary. Also the inclusion of pedestrian amenities, walkways, and lighting. And we've dealt with the cross-access agreement situation as well. As far as architectural guidelines, we've developed guidelines so that new development will be consistent and compatible with the surrounding buildings, including design, scale, and massing. We've included a section on signage, which would speak to the number and sign of signage, also the types of signs, and we also have a section where we talk about signage programs, specifically for multi-tenant strip mall type developments. There are several specific use sections here which deal with service stations, auto repair, car washes, drive-through businesses, and self-storage facilities, which we find should be particularly sensitive to design concerns. District number 1, Campbell Drive. In this section, we have included more regulations for refined parking lot design. We've included transit-oriented development, sensitive big box development, and refined franchise design, which we thought were all issues within this corridor. District number 2, which is the Southwest 14th Avenue, Southwest 8th Street. There's a lot of warehouses prevalent in this district, so we've developed sensitive warehouse design standards, pedestrian connections to transit stops, and an increased landscape for industrial use buildings. District number 3, an increase in pedestrian amenities. We've required that the commercial developments locate parking to the rear and sides of any new development, an increase in decorative paving, sensitive warehouse design, and an increase in landscape for industrial buildings. Commercial district number 4, which is Dixie Highway. The issues here we felt would require refined parking lot design, transit-oriented development, an increase in architectural detailing, increased amount of open space, and refined franchise design. District number 5, Pioneer Commerce Park. An increase in pedestrian amenities, locating the parking to the rear and sides of the new development, decorative paving, sensitive warehouse design, and an increase in landscape for industrial use buildings. District number 6, refined parking lot design, an increased amount of open space, pedestrian-oriented design, and an increase in transit features. District number 7, Chrome Avenue. Parking should be located at the rear or sides of the building. Ground floor offices should incorporate a storefront design, and pedestrian-oriented design should be incorporated into any new commercial development. Commercial District number 9, the Park of Commerce corridor. We've emphasized refined parking lot design, transit-oriented development, pedestrian-oriented design, and an increase in open space. Now, we're going back to the areas on the map that were not labeled, which are going to be the historic overlay districts. From comments from the Historic Preservation Board and the Main Street Inc., which we've met with, they were concerned regarding proposed commercial overlay district. The comments are currently being addressed and changes are being made to include this area at a later date. One of the comments was the regulations for these two separate areas should be drafted to reflect their respective characters. Number 2, the proposed National Register District shall reference the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation adopted for the district, which will be effective upon official designation of the National Register District. Number 3, cross-reference shall be made to existing and proposed ordinances and regulations, which are the Historic District Standards in Chapter 14, Article 3 of the City Code. The Historic Preservation Resolution approved color chart shall also be referenced. There's also a paint color exemption for the Historic District referenced in your code. And finally, the Historic Preservation Board will use the architectural design guidelines adopted in 1995 to govern the historic district. In conclusion, the commercial design standards were established to create a sense of place in the city of Homestead. These guidelines will create standard and fair regulation for all applicants. The quality of commercial development within the city of Homestead will be elevated. And we greatly appreciate your attention and input and would be happy to answer any questions any of you may have.
Mr. Council, we're going to have another presentation, I believe, so we're going to try to group those together if it's okay with you. But while that switch is being made for the gas utility, while that switch is being made, if I could have our City Attorney Mitch Bernstein come and give you the latest on our eminent domain for New City Hall, update on that and some issues. If you would. If you would. Moving, but there's one more. Yeah, there's this guy here.
Good evening. The city manager asked me to give you a quick update on the status of the parcels that are needed for the new City Hall site. There are 3 pieces of property that are in eminent domain that are needed for acquisition for the new site, and the city manager just asked me to give you a brief status on those, particularly because we have a court hearing coming up on Thursday, and we have a proposed agreement worked out on the most significant of the 3 pieces, and that is the Borges leasehold estate. You may recall last year that we bought the that portion of the Homestead Plaza condominium. It was units 100 and 200. However, that property interest that the city bought was subject to a long-term lease in favor of Borges Market. So we have been negotiating with the owner of Borges Market through his attorney to acquire that leasehold estate. It's a bit complicated because Mr. Borges seeks to relocate his business, and it takes time to do that, and he has found a replacement site to which he wants to relocate. The city manager obviously is anxious to get control of this property because you all want a new city hall site. So we have been going back and forth, and we've been negotiating over a period of many months, and I think we have agreement in place subject to your approval. What the city has proposed and what the property owner is agreeable to, actually the leasehold estate owner is agreeable to, is that we enter into an agreed order of taking, which means that the city would acquire his interest, his full interest in the property. However, we would let him stay there until March 31st. He would continue to pay rent under the terms of the lease. He's not getting any financial advantage in doing that. But we would guarantee that he would be able to remain in place to continue to conduct business until at least March 31st, 2007. The city manager has assured me that in no event are we going to need to clear the property prior to that date. It is possible that he could continue beyond the March 31st date. He could only do that with our approval. If he petitions to continue occupancy beyond March 31st, he would need our written approval to maintain occupancy. The way we're working it out financially is his leasehold value has significant value because it's so far under market, and we also are obligated pursuant to eminent domain statutes and law to pay him for moving expenses and to pay him for immovable trade fixtures. He has a significant amount of fixtures in place, and moving them is going to be long and an expensive process. So pursuant to our appraisers estimating the value of his leasehold estate and the value of his fixtures at $429,000, we've agreed to deposit $450,000 into the court registry. He'll have access to that money. He'll be able to withdraw that money. But at the point at which we deposit $450,000, we will then own his leasehold estate, and we will have complete control over that parcel. Now, in the event that he seeks to extend his period of occupancy beyond March 31st with the approval of the city, we will move that date of valuation back 1 day for every day that he keeps getting occupancy. For example, if he continues in occupancy for 3 months, our date of valuation continues on for 3 months. The reason that we do that is because the longer we have in terms of that date of valuation, the less his leasehold estate is worth. So we didn't want him to get an unfair advantage by continuing to remain, and the city would have to pay him the difference between the market value of his lease and what he's actually paying. So that way it keeps everyone on equal footing. I believe they're going to accept that. If they don't, we'll have to go through an adversarial order of taking hearing. I don't think it's going to get to that. And so what we're doing is we're seeking your approval for that arrangement, and the city manager thought you may have questions as well as part of that.
Are we receiving rental payments under the lease?
That's correct.
And we would continue to do so, or has that been calculated within that settlement amount?
No, sir. We're continuing to receive payments for rent. I believe it's $7,000 a month. It's under the terms of the old lease as it existed prior to the city's acquisition of that property.
So we are being compensated for his remaining in place. I guess, Kurt, the only question I would have is if upon payment of this and being offset by his lease, we're still within budget for the acquisition of the entire package?
Yes, I would say so. We won't know till the end because we don't know what the award will be. You know, we're doing the quick take. We're putting money up front. The actual value will be determined later. So as we move right now, we're within.
Well, that's on the other unit. We've dispensed with the Borges fee acquisition.
Right.
Well, Borges, we still have the compensation phase to work out. They claim that their leasehold estate plus the value of the fixtures is worth even a couple $100,000 more than what we think.
Now, I'm talking about the fee interest of the Borges unit. That's resolved.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But there are other condo units within the property that still remain outstanding.
Yes, sir. Units 300 and 400 are owned by a corporation known as FIG, and actually we've had very positive settlement discussions with their attorney. The principal, I believe, of FIG is Mike Fernandez, who likes the city manager and has a good relationship with the city and would like to work out a deal in total, full compensation payable and as well as the taking. And we're close to, I hope, resolving that. They're going to consult with an eminent domain attorney, which always could throw a few complications into it, but they do seem very willing to negotiate acquisition, and they have not indicated that they're opposed to the taking. So that's going to be scheduled, that order of taking is going to be scheduled soon, and then the final piece of the puzzle is what the city manager and I refer to as a satellite farm, and they are not opposing the taking either.
Right. Do you need a formal action to move forward, or just some indication of consensus of the
I don't believe, maybe Dave...
I think a consensus is sufficient. Consensus of the members present is sufficient.
No, I'll leave the mic for the other three.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll report back to the city manager. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mitch. We now have, which is tab 7, a discussion on the resolution for gas supply agreement 2, and I'll preface this. You can introduce the guest speaker here from the, you can tell them from where. Okay. I forgot where you were from. The company, Florida Gas Utilities. Thank you. Right now we have an agreement number 1 with Florida Gas Utilities. That's where we purchase all our natural gas through to run our engines at the electric utility. That particular agreement runs out next year. If I'm 2008. I'm sorry. 2008. We have been negotiating another agreement for natural gas, which this is agreement 2 for the natural gas. So we have a presentation on this particular agreement. The financial side of it is a little complicated in how they fund it themselves. I don't know how far we'll get into that, but really, basically, we are extending another agreement called Agreement 2 to purchase gas for the power plant. Do you want to add something, Ken, before?
I just want to clarify that this isn't an amendment to the existing agreement. It's a brand new
agreement, right?
A brand new contract. And with us tonight is Jerry Warren. He's the financial advisor for Florida Gas Utility, to give the presentation and answer any questions the council may have.
Mr. Vice Mayor, council members, my name is Jerry Warren. I'm one of the financial advisors for Florida Gas Utility. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to present what we refer to as FGU's gas supply acquisition project number 2. I'd like to say first that Ms. Katrina Vaughn, the general manager of FGU, sends her regrets for not being able to be here tonight. She had to attend a public gas partnership meeting in Atlanta. And they looked at me and they said, "You live in Orlando, you're closest to Homestead," so here I am. I'm not sure I believe that Orlando's all that close to Homestead, but I'm glad to be here. I have a short presentation and would be glad to answer any questions you might have at any point in the presentation or at the end. First, a little bit about Florida Gas Utility. Most of you probably know this, but FGU is a project-oriented 23-member organization created in 1989. It acts on behalf of its members via interlocal agreement. You know, I have the opportunity as FGU's financial advisor to often make presentation to some of its member cities, and sometimes I get the sense that the cities sort of feel like that we're some sort of company that sells you gas, but actually we're a joint action agency that you own. And the city of Homestead was one of the original 5 cities that actually created FGU way back in 1989. FGU has one purpose, and that is to provide the lowest cost, highest reliability gas possible to its members. We have a new project. We call it GSAP 2, Gas Supply Acquisition Project number 2. It's a prepayment project for a 20-year supply of natural gas. Give you a little bit of background. As the city manager indicated, you did participate in GSAP number 1. That was a 10-year prepay project. Florida Gas Utility issued $115 million of tax-exempt bonds to finance the 10-year prepay. Your share was about 182,500 MMBTU per year. That project was structured to create 19 cents per MMBTU of savings. Your share of those savings about $350,000. Recently, I guess, Kim, last year or sometime, you agreed to participate in the PGP project, which goes beyond FGU. It involves other joint action agencies in the southeastern United States, notably the Municipal Gas Authority of Georgia. This particular project is not a prepay, but it's actually an acquisition of natural gas in the ground, so it's a reserve acquisition. Gas wells have decline curves. The first year they produce the maximum amount of natural gas. Your share is estimated to be 82,333 million BTUs per year during those early years, and it declines year by year as the well gets older. At year 2024, 2025, it goes to zero. At the estimated 50 cents per MMBTU savings, that particular project will give you about $41,000 a year in savings off of the market price of natural gas. Obviously, that dollar amount declines as you move through time and the output of the wells decline. This is GSAP number 2. It's the second prepay project. The prepayment will be made to UBS. They're a AA+ rated investment banking company for a 20-year firm supply of natural gas. A lot of people don't know who UBS is. They're a very large, diversified investment bank, actually one of the largest in the world, and they're also in the natural gas business, in the electric sales business. They have assets of $1.5 trillion and annual revenues of over $60 billion a year. I know if you're like me, numbers like trillions and billions, kind of fly over your head. If I can put this in sort of, numbers that might make sense to us as individuals, this would be somebody that has a $60,000 a year income and have somehow amassed $1.5 million in assets. So they're a company that does something very, very well. In the gas business, if you take all the gas supply companies in the world, in North America, and rank UBS, they would rank number 9. So they're very big as natural gas suppliers go. But if you just look at the investment banking firms that are in the natural gas business, the Goldman Sachs, the JP Morgans, the Bank of Americas, the Bear Stearns, they're ranked number 1 in that group. Something unique about this transaction, we've worked very hard to make this a very low-risk prepayment project. When you give somebody a bunch of money for the prepayment of a 20-year supply of natural gas, you want to structure it in a way where you minimize your risk. They're now rated a AA+. I don't know if you're familiar with credit ratings. The highest you can get is a AAA. There aren't very many companies that are rated AAA. To give you an example of some, they're the Exxon Mobils, the Johnson & Johnsons, the Pfizers. I believe Shell Oil is a AAA. Maybe they're a AA+. So if you're a AA+, that's the next notch down below a AAA. They're among the highest rated credits out there. And what that means is that they are the strongest companies in the world in terms of their ability to meet their financial obligations. You might remember when we did the GSAP 1 transaction, we did it with a company, the Williams Energy Company, which had a much lower credit rating. And since they had a much lower credit rating and we wanted to be sure that they could stand behind their 10-year obligation, we went to AIG and they had a AA rating and provided a performance bond on Williams' performance. In this particular transaction, the performance bonds are no longer available in the marketplace. So what we have negotiated with UBS is If they get downgraded to a AA-, which is still a very, very high credit rating, at that point they will be required to post collateral that would actually pay off the bonds on the transaction. So we believe that that collateral requirement in this particular transaction mirrors or gives us a similar level of comfort that we had in the old GSAP project that was backed by AIG. The base structure of this transaction, just like GSAP 1, is index minus savings pricing. And what that means to you, the index is the market price of gas delivered into Florida on the Florida Gas Transmission Pipeline, Zone 2, which is one of the zones where FGU buys the bulk of its gas for its member systems. And so the index is what the marketplace says that gas is worth. If it goes to $10, it's $10. If it goes to $5, it's $5. And so you're always have the comfort of knowing that the gas you buy is going to be priced at the market. And then there'll be a discount or a savings below that. So you have comfort of knowing that you're getting market price gases and plus a discount. There was some thought given to doing a fixed price transaction. I mean, you go borrow money to prepay, and essentially by doing that, you fix the price. But anytime you do a fixed price transaction in a world with ever-changing prices, you're speculating. You know, we could bring you a deal and say, how would you like to fix price of gas for 20 years at $7, and maybe you might feel that $7 a billion BTU looks like a great price, and you fix it. And 15 years out or 10 years out, suddenly, you know, the world that we live in changes. Maybe they start drilling in the Gulf of Mexico, and prices plummet to $4 or $5, and you're hung with $7 gas. So, you know, we concluded that the least risk approach to this transaction was to price it like GSAP 1, and that would be at the index less a discount. By doing that, you're sure that the gas is never out of the market. The participants enjoy the guaranteed savings of the discount. And frankly, from the rating agency point of view, they prefer that because they worry about you cities in addition to the UBSs of the world. They say, well, what happens if the city of Homestead doesn't need 182,000 MMBTU per year or 1,100 MMBTU per day for its power plant? What are we going to do? Well, they have comfort of knowing that FGU has this gas priced at the index less discount, and so that gas can be remarketed to other cities or other players in the market and have no difficulty getting rid of the gas. So it reduces the risk of the transaction to you, it reduces the risk of the transaction to bondholders, and of course that makes the rating agencies very happy. We took proposals on this deal back in September. We've been negotiating since then. Every month or month and a half, we recalculate the savings. When we took the proposals on September the 19th, it was index minus 27.6 cents. You can say it's moved up, it's moved down. The most recent estimate that we did May 25th is 48.9 cents per decatherm, which are fabulous savings. We're very pleased. What makes that number move around, there are a number of things. The actual price of natural gas at the time changes it. The difference between the borrowing rate for tax-exempt and taxable debt influences the number significantly. And we've had, participants change the amount. New participants join the transaction. All of those things influence the calculation of the amount of savings. We can't guarantee you that it'll be 48.9 cents. What I can guarantee you is that whatever the number is the day we close the transaction, that is the savings that we can all count on for the duration of the 20 years. I don't know whether we'll make the 50-cent mark. It feels like we're headed there. We're still finalizing a few numbers, but I guess we all have a fair amount of comfort that it'll be somewhere between 40 and 50 cents. Each city participant will execute a gas supply agreement number 2. It's a take and pay obligation. The contract that you entered into for the GSAP number 1, which ends in 2008, and the Public Gas Partnership Reserve acquisition are both take or pay. Under a take or pay contract, you have to pay whether the gas is delivered to you or not. It's more like a debt obligation. In this particular transaction, it's take and pay. What that means to you as a participant is if UBS fails to deliver the gas, you don't have to pay. And so we believe that this is one of the enhancements for this transaction that makes it a little less risky for the city participants. Gas supply agreement number 2 provides the credit support that for the bonds that FGE will issue to prepay for the gas. Just note something that you're probably already aware of, and that is that you have signed the letter of intent to participate in the project. GSAP number 1, between now and November 2008, you're taking about 500 million BTUs per day through the GSAP 1 project. The PGP reserve project, you'll be estimated take in 2007 will be 225 MMBTU per day, and it declines to near zero at about 2025. One of the uncertainties about reserve projects is you really don't know how long they'll last. It could be that you get to 2025 and you're still taking gas, and if you do, that tends to increase the savings. Your GSAP 2 project comes in at 1,107 MMBTU per day, an average after the end of the GSAP 1 project. So your 20-year total will be 7,654,300 MMBTU. If you use 45 cents to calculate the benefit to you, it's about a $3.4 million benefit to the city of Homestead, which is a substantial amount of money. The benefits of this type of transaction where you prepay for a long-term firm supply of gas, what we find is that prepays provide a very reliable gas supply. It comes first in the supplier's priority to serve, and of course the reason for that is you've already paid for the gas. If you're in a long-term firm pay-as-you-go contract, which is not an unusual contract, if there is any reason, a force majeure, a hurricane, pipeline interruptions, or whatever, where the supplier has to cut back some portion of the gas that's being delivered, you would be cut last because your transaction is a prepay transaction. Just to give you evidence of that, your GSAP 1 transaction during the hurricanes of 2004-2005, there were disruptions of gas supply, but the GSAP 1 gas was firm during all those hurricane events. So we're very proud of the fact that you get a more reliable supply when you prepay. The index lesser known discount pricing structure provides savings. From your point of view, it's an off-balance sheet transaction. You're not going out borrowing the money. FGU is doing it on your behalf. Actually, in terms of City of Homestead accounting, it'll show up as an O&M expense on the fuel side, which is where it should show up. It ends up being savings to you in your fuel expense. You have no requirement to book a liability since it's FGU's debt, and consequently you don't have to provide any debt service coverage. Doing this, there's currently 15 participants, municipal participants, that have agreed to participate in this project. By doing it with 15 participants, it spreads the cost and the risk among all the participants, and therefore reduces the risk and increases the savings to individual participants. There are a number of built-in protections in this transaction. The contract is take and pay instead of take or pay. If UBS fails to deliver, there's no obligation for the city to pay. UBS is currently rated a AA+. If their rating declines to just 2 notches, AA-, UBS must post collateral sufficient to pay off the bonds and the other termination costs. If UBS defaults under the contract, they must make a termination payment to FGU, and the termination payment has to be sufficient to pay off the bonds, swap termination payments, and any other termination costs. So those, in a nutshell, are the built-in protections and advantages of the prepay. Next steps, during the month of June and July, the individual participants will be finalizing their gas supply agreements and getting governing body approvals. This meeting tonight and this presentation is a part of this city's process in doing that. I guess if your next formal city commission meeting, you'll actually take up the resolution that approves the gas supply agreement. During late July or early August, we anticipate that FGU's executive committee will authorize the issuance of the bonds. We believe the bonds will be issued in early August 2006, and the prepaid agreement with UBS will likewise be executed at the time we issue the bonds. At least at present, we believe gas delivery will begin September the 1st, 2006. That's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be delighted to try to answer them for you.
I think now that we have no further presentations, so you can go back up there for comments. You have the microphones available.
Kurt, did you anticipate that we would go back and first address the commercial development standard ordinance?
Well, if you would like to finish here, and then we'll go back and do the commercial ordinance.
Because we can probably dispense with the gas quicker than the ordinance.
Than that, yes, sir. We think.
That's good. Kurt, does your staff have anything to add? Anybody from utilities on the gas contracts?
No, I don't really have anything to add. Just, GSAP 1 has been really good for us. It's not created any problems. GSAP 2 is almost identical, except in a couple of areas it's even a little better. The savings is going to be a lot greater. The last meeting that I went to, they think we might hit the 50-cent savings. And over the course of 20 years, that adds up, like Jerry said, to $3.4 million.
And it seems that we've secured a guaranteed source for a definite period of time for our gas needs rather than being out on our own in the open market on a daily basis.
That's correct.
Trying to buy, sell, and trade gas supplies, and certainly I wouldn't think that we'd be able to realize those savings.
I'll move the resolution.
Okay. Thank you. We have a motion from Ms. Bell.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Porter. Is there anything further from council? Anything from the public? Further from council? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, we've dealt with Borges, so we're ready to go back to the commercial standards. Ms. Garner, did this come through your code committee?
No, it didn't. I was actually going to make a comment that if we could have, at least let me meet with staff whenever there's going to be something issuing, with the code, that I'd like to look at it, because it was a surprise to me.
Yeah, and those were my thoughts, and I know in talking to Mr. Chandra earlier, I don't get the sense that there's something urgent necessarily that we need to adopt this. Certainly the intents and the concepts are very important, but we're not really under the gun to get this in place. And I know in my review over the last few days of this, and I know it's taken about a year to get before us, that I don't know that this is something that the four of us should move forward for first reading without the other three, without the opportunity to talk to staff. I know that I've picked up on some things that are very troubling that seem to be inconsistent with some of the outline and some of our prior activities. And I think I'd like the opportunity for you as the co-chair to sit down with staff and get some background and express your concerns, and then maybe follow up with a workshop where we can hopefully all seven of us sit together and address some of the issues that come from your discussions and that others of us have raised at such time when we're all present, and not taking too long into the future, but just to have that opportunity to do that. So, David, would it be appropriate at this point just to defer it?
Yes, that would be fine in accordance with the explanation that you've just made.
I'll move to defer, because I agree with
I think it's really a big step forward, but we need to be very careful that we're not undoing or hindering some policies that we've had in the past. All right, so I've got a motion from Mr. Porter and a second from Ms. Garner to defer. We don't need a time certain, do we, David?
No, not necessary.
Okay. Can I just ask and also when they bring it back, I know in the past when we've made holistic changes like this, sometimes we've run into points where how easy is it to modify a document like this? I mean, or how difficult it is it for us to modify a document when you
you sit and you read all this dialogue, you just get caught up in the words, and you can't always apply it to the actual projects. So, as these projects come up, how difficult will it be for us to modify as we go? That's all when it comes back. Yeah. If there's any fluctuations or minor changes.
Because this is a huge step. And maybe overhaul some other code provisions, and we need to be as close as we can get so that we're not faced 30 to 60 days later as we have been in the past with some requests for modification. So anything further? With Bill? All right. Then we have a motion and a second to defer this matter. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Ms. Bell, Finance Committee.
Bid 200602, transmission line and distribution line construction.
Ms. Bell, Vice Mayor and Council, the Evaluation Committee met in their recommendation to award the bid for the construction of our transmission and distribution lines that are related to the two new substations that we're building be awarded to Mostech North America. They were the lowest responsive bidder. We do believe that, or we're planning on this being partially funded by the EDA grant plus monies that we have budgeted for that. The construction will be, the transmission distribution will be from the substations to the Lucy Street substation where we have the tie line coming in on this particular construction. The total cost is approximately 1.6 mil. For that construction.
And we all are recognizing and realizing how important it is to get this substation online.
Yes.
I'll entertain a motion to approve this.
I'll move it with one quick question.
Moved by Councilman Porter.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Garner. Mr. Porter?
We have used this company before other times.
Yes.
So it's not like they're a brand new company.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions or comments from council? Questions or comments from the audience? All in favor say aye. Aye. And the ayes carry.
All right. Mr. Ivey, are you taking utility committee? We've taken care of the resolution of the gas supply. Item 4B, tab 8.
Tab 8. Again, this basically is a renewal of what we call our spinning reserve process that we have to have at the electric plant. We're required by FERC to have a certain reserve, spinning reserve. We used to keep an engine online to provide the spinning reserve. We found that it was more cost effective to purchase the spinning reserve from FP&L, and we're renewing this contract with FP&L. Last year, I think it saved approximately $470,000 for us to not do it ourselves.
To not operate on equipment.
You're right, not operating.
I'll move it because it doesn't make any sense to try to do it ourselves.
Second it.
Well, it's gone up $2,000, $10,000 a month to $12,000.
Still cheaper.
It was still cheaper. Yes, definitely.
Do we have a motion and a second? Is there anything further from council? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Parks and Rec, Mr. Ivey.
All right, under Parks and Rec, we have heard item 9 at this point, and that's really merely it was the reading of the minutes from a workshop on Audubon Park. We'll come back with that at a later date for probably more full discussions on that. Again, we are now at the Children's Trust Grant application resolution, tab 10.
You want me to move it? Why would we not accept $210,000?
Second.
It'll probably hit next year's budget.
This is an application, not
This is an application and authorization for
next year.
For next year to accept it. It's to fund the summer camps at Roby George and Homestead Sports Complex next year.
We have a motion by Councilman Porter.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Bell. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the Urban Forestry Grant. Now, is this an acceptance or an application?
This is another application, and to accept if we receive this application. It's a grant for $50,000 for remediation of the impact of the Hurricane 205 hurricane season on our trees. What we call them urban trees. There's a match of $17,000, which we probably already met through what we do in the cleanup and straightening of trees opposed, straightening them up, or is what you can use for match activities that we've already completed as a result of the hurricanes. This would give us $50,000 to buy product, and it'll probably be next fiscal year before we know if we get this or not.
I'll move it.
Okay. Moved by Ms. Bell. Right here, second, Dorothy. Second by Councilwoman Garner. Kurt, speaking of that, did we commission a tree inventory some time ago? Is that
is close.
Has that been interrupted by the 3 wind events?
Well, yeah, it was. It made their counting easier. They didn't have as many trees left to count. But Kirk, they are close to, he can give you an update on that, but they're close to.
Better hurry.
Yeah.
Yes, they spent several weeks in town, all the city properties and the right-of-ways, collecting the information data on the inventory. They're putting all that together now. We should have a report soon.
Good, thank you. It's interesting, I know the item that we're going to revisit on the commercial standards talks about enhanced landscaping, and that's a nice tie-in to all of this as well. Do we have a motion for approval of the grant application?
I'll move it.
I think Mr. Porter moved it. Councilwoman Bell seconded it,
I
I think.
think that's fine.
Whatever you need to put.
Fill in the blank.
Anything further?
Sheila.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And Councilman Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Item A is tab 5, item A is motorcycle lease agreement resolution. Mr. Manager, if you want to...
Yes, that's tab 5, and we moved it down here since it should have been under public safety. We had it under finance before. But at any rate, this is a continuation of a renewal of a lease agreement we have for 4 motorcycles, plus the agreement includes 1 spare motorcycle that we pay $1 per month. So if we have a bike go down or maintenance or accident,
provides us immediate delivery.
It provides us another immediate vehicle, motorcycle. It's with Fort Lauderdale Harley-Davidson. We piggybacked off of Fort Lauderdale contract, and it's $375 per month for the motorcycles, and we replace them annually. I know what Harley does. They take them and they make more money when they put them back out, take off the police equipment and sell it to people like sit out in the audience here, some of them. So at any rate, it's been good for us.
Do I hear a trace of envy in your voice?
Yes. Time's lost,
Let me ask the Chief, you get good service out of the motorcycle officers being able to get out there and patrol the streets very well, move around quickly. You're happy with the motorcycle arrangement? Okay.
I'll move it.
It's moved by Councilman.
I'll second it.
Excuse me. Any other discussion? Any public discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Tab 12 is Florida Department of Transportation grant and resolution. Mr. Manager?
Yes, Mr. Porter, Vice Mayor and Council. This is an acceptance of a grant award in the amount of $31,500 from the Florida Department of Transportation. It goes to fund the purchase of a message board, signs, warning signs as well, to be used by the equipment to be used by the traffic unit. So those message boards are great. We got 2 of them. This will give us another.
Moved by Ms. places to put them.
They're great.
Moved by Ms. Garner.
Second.
Second by Ms. Bell. Anything, Mr. Vice Mayor? Any discussion? Anything from the community? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. 31,000.
When's delivery?
When do we get it?
What? I'm sorry?
When do we get the money?
Well, we've accepted it as officially on Monday, and Tuesday morning we'll call. Get it in effect.
These are great committee items to be discussing, by the way. Tab 13 is a Project Safe Neighborhood Grant and Resolution. Mr. Manager?
This is another grant award which requesting to accept in the amount of $161,000 from Project Safe Neighborhoods. This is a continuing, actually, grant. We've had this before, and it's used to fund the summer camp for at-risk youth. They get life skills training, mentoring. There's a mentoring project that is funded. There's an interesting project in which they receive training in computer building. And when they build a computer, they get to keep it. and take it home. I thought that was pretty good. And this is in conjunction with our weed and seed program, and that it's housed over at the PAL building.
Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Moved by Ms. Garner, second. Second by Ms. Bell. Any other discussion? Any public input? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Last item, Mr. Vice Mayor, is tab 14, Children's Trust Grant Award and Resolution. Mr. Manager?
Again, Mr. Porter, Vice Mayor and Council, this is a grant that we applied for and received, and we're looking for permission to accept the award of $100,800. The last one was $161. I didn't mention that, but this one is $100,800. It's funds for the PAL Youth After School and Summer Program that works in conjunction again with Weed and Seed. This money is used to hire contractual personnel such as tutors and coaches for the program.
Moved by Councilwoman Bell, excuse me. Second?
I'll second it.
By Ms. Garner. Any discussion? Any public input? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. That's a grand total of about $293,000 in grants.
Almost in hand.
Almost in hand. That's incredible, Chief. That's incredible. You guys do a wonderful job. Mr. Vice Mayor, that's all the business I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Mr. Manager, anything further?
Go Heat.
Mr. Wolfen?
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bell?
Congratulations to the chief on being Man of the Year. Congratulations.
No, sir. Nothing.
Ms. Garner?
Just one thing I was going to bring up at the last council meeting, but since it was 4 hours long, I wanted to hold it. Mr. Shahada, maybe you can help me. I've been asking about the light at Kingman and Campbell for a long time now, and I was told June was it was going to happen, and I was driving down 8th Street the other day, and I was really upset to see that there's a light already going up at 8th Street, and I think it was 142 or 147, and there's nothing even there, and yet we can't get it at Kingman. Can you give me an update on the timeline, or who I can call and yell at?
Actually, I'm speechless. I spoke to Julio because you were going to ask this question in the last council meeting about Kingman and Campbell Drive. He's telling me they told him July. I know they were saying June, now they're slipping it to July.
I just don't understand. It's come all the way from 137 and they're heading further and further west, but where the real need is, they're not addressing. I mean, they're putting one up by the hospital and there's nothing on the south side of Campbell Drive there yet. I mean, it's great, we need lights all the way down, but I get calls out all the time for Kingman and Campbell, and it's really a safety issue.
Ms. Garner, you're absolutely right, and we will continue to push with the county. Unfortunately, that one falls under the county itself, so they're coming out of their budget. The rest of the lights that were installed came from the construction contract, which is private money. That's why it moved faster. Okay. But I know this is not a satisfactory answer to citizens, but I promise you we will continue pushing.
Thank you.
No problem.
That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Garner. That reminds me of one issue. I'm hopeful that our 4th of July event this year is as well attended as it was last year. It appears it's going to be an even better program than it was. And speaking of traffic, I know I personally had some difficulty getting out of there and getting home last year, Chief. I hope that maybe we can have some human traffic lights if we didn't have them last year out there at Kingman and Campbell and those other points to put on a good face for those who may not have attended before and will be encouraged to come back without traffic issues next year. Now, just a real nice attendance, and we want to keep that up and not have, when we can empty NASCAR in an hour and
4 hours out.
I think we got caught by surprise on the attendance last year.
That's great.
That's all I had. Thank you all. If there's nothing from the public, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.